if I'm being honest, like, I think I would let him nibble on a rib, Like, why not? Like, let him, he's hot and I am a sucker for a problematic guy. Red flags, let's go. So, yeah, I don't know if the world is ready for an Armie Hammer comeback, but I think for me, I'm definitely down to, I'm down to let him nibble on a couple of my limbs.
It's the Pop Report.
So juicy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pop Report, our very special Thanksgiving edition. And like all families who fight, Andy and I are fighting, and it is just me solo today. Just kidding. Andy is out sick this week, and hopefully this weekend he's feeling better enough to get stuffed like a turkey. But yeah, I'm going to be rocking the show solo today, so I'm just going to ask myself, hey, what's going on, Miss Ma'am? And then that's when I would say, oh, not much. And then he'd say, how was your weekend? And then I would say, I was living. But actually, I did do a lot of living this weekend because I went to Andy's Friendsgiving dinner that he hosted at his humble abode in Santa Monica, which was very lovely and had so many charcuterie boards. And I'm happy to report I did not get drunk and fight with anybody, which I feel like is a victory for me. I did a little bit of pot stirring, but like we had a lot of fun and there were so many charcuterie boards. Like one thing Andy knows how to do is make a charcuterie board, and there were so many charcuterie boards. So if you need somebody to make a charcuterie board for your Thanksgiving or just holiday humble abode, Andrew Lalwani is your go-to person. So DM him and say, hey, can I get a slab of your pastrami? And maybe he'll make you one. Maybe not. And then this is where he would say, moving on. But yeah, that's what I did over the weekend. And then Andy has been sick the past couple of days. So here we are. Here I am recording this week's episode of the Pop Report solo. But it is our Thanksgiving edition. So if you are celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend with your family, with your friends, with yourself, with your dog, or if you're Taylor Swift and you're celebrating it with your cat, you know what? Happy Thanksgiving. We're so grateful and thankful to you guys for supporting this podcast. We have broken 50 episodes and, we appreciate all the love. So please continue to send us love, continue to subscribe and leave reviews. Let me give you a couple review shout outs because we did get a couple of them over the weekend. So here we go. Avery Joan Hitt says, love. At first, I wasn't sure if I cared about every pop topic, but love you guys so much that now I do. Congrats on a great job. Thank you, Avery, on Apple Podcasts. We also have TurboTax Mom, who says these two have good banter. I look forward to their weekly updates. Love the duo. See, if you don't come for the pop topics, at least you stay for us, right? Let's see. We also got some love on Spotify. What? Ryan says laughs in reference to the last episode with Ellen DeGeneres and Donna Bowling. Ryan says laughed so hard during this episode. So good. Carla B says, oh my God, my 3 faves. Love you so much. Patty said loves it. No notes. Katie says, had to laugh at how flustered Andy was getting trying to keep Zack and Donna bantering while he was trying so hard to keep the show on track. Too funny. And then Smiling Eyes Media says, this was a fun episode with Donna. Bring her back every once in a while. Listen, I love when you guys love our guests, so please show them some love and continue to show us love. Subscribe, like, comment, all the things. Grateful for you. Okay, let's get into what's hot in the headlines this week. Whew. Well, I don't know about you, but over the weekend, a lot of people were talking about Wicked because Wicked premiered to groundbreaking numbers. People have been raving about Wicked. They've been loving Wicked. They were staying up late on Thursday night to go see Wicked, and it had some Wicked reactions, which I think was good. I mean, I'm not like super compelled to go and watch Wicked, but like I'm glad that it's, if anything, it's the feedback is making me more inclined to see it because I'm like, okay, well, at least it's not terrible. I don't love that it's 2 parts, right? You have like part 1, and so we only get half of the story. Like Harry Potter, remember the final Harry Potter movie was broken up into part 1 and part 2, and we had to wait all the time between part 1 and part 2. No, I want the full story, and I want the full story now. So I'm not loving the fact that we've broken it up into a 2-part movie when is the musical is not broken up into 2 parts. It's 1 part. Why couldn't we just keep it 1 part? Oh, because you wanted to milk us for more money? Well, Seems like people are giving it to you. And you know what else people are doing? They're holding space for defying gravity. So Ariana Grande and Cynthia have been getting trolled. They're the two stars of Wicked, Ariana and Cynthia. And they have been getting trolled online, on TikTok, on X, on Threads, all over the internet because people are laughing at their press interviews because they've been so over the top, right? They're every time somebody gives them a compliment, they start crying, they're holding hands, like they're just like, oh, thank you. And then one reporter over the weekend, a clip started circulating and went a little viral because one reporter said that she saw online that there were people that were taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and they were holding space for them. And then Cynthia starts getting choked up. And then Ariana grabs her finger and she holds her one little finger. And it was just the funniest thing because it's like, it's so random that Ariana's like just holding her one little finger. But she also has those giant like Khloe Kardashian nails. So they look like claws. So it looks like she's just holding her little claw. It's funny because it's so awkward and random and weird. And so the internet's basically trolling the two of them for how over the top and emotional they're becoming about this movie. And this is the point of the podcast where Andy would insert himself and say, well, it is a very emotional movie and we should hold space for them. And we do love them and we should all kumbaya. So I will definitely hold space for Andy Lalwani so that he can add his commentary of how much he loves Cynthia and how much he loves Ariana and how much he loves the sisterhood of the traveling witch hat and or the traveling broomstick and how much we, need to hold space and support these women. And so I agree. I concur. But it just is really funny because everybody on the internet was like, what does it mean to hold space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity? Like, what does that mean? Nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. That's from the Kanye song. And I think that was like Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell quote, nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. I forgot what movie that was from. That was from one of his funny movies, his comedies from back in the day when like Will Ferrell was relevant. Anyway, so thank you all for holding space for defying gravity. And go watch Wicked. If you haven't, go and watch it because there was another little Wicked controversy that got stirred up over the weekend in regards to Ariana and Cynthia because people were saying, oh, Cynthia is, an acclaimed actress and Broadway star and singer, and Ariana was on Nickelodeon. And so they were saying that apparently there was this rumor, it was a low-budget rumor that was going around that Ariana had gotten paid more than Cynthia, which a spokesperson for Universal Pictures has released a statement saying, reports of pay disparity between Cynthia and Ariana are completely false and based on internet fodder. The women received equal pay for their work on Wicked. Dun, dun, dun. So it looks like they're defying rumors. There's no pay disparity between the two of them. They were paid equal pay for equal work. Okay. Good for them. If you've seen Wicked, drop a comment below and let us know if you enjoyed the movie, or if you have no interest in it, let us know why. Continue to foster that conversation. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it. I don't want to see it now because it's too fresh, and I feel like eventually, when the hype dies down a little bit, or maybe I'll wait until it starts streaming. Who knows? But until then, I'll keep defying popularity. Moving on. Okay, the other biggest news that broke this week, or at least at the tippity top of the week, is Vanderpump Rules. So I know I normally cover a lot of the Bravo stuff on my other podcast, No Filter, which if you want deeper commentary about Schwartz and Sandy's closing, Vanderpump Rules ending, the reboot coming, you can go and tune into No Filter for that, but I'll cover it here as well because it is a hot topic. After 12 years, Vanderpump Rules has come, well, at least the OG veteran cast has come to an end, and they're going to be completely rebooting the show for season 12, which is interesting. So they're getting rid of all of the current veterans, Ariana, Tom Sandoval, Tom Schwartz, Sheena Shea, James Kennedy, Lala Kent, all of them, they're throwing them out the window, out with the Thanksgiving leftovers, and bringing in a whole new, fresh cast. I think a lot of the commentary, or at least a lot of the feedback in the last couple of seasons, was in relation to the fact that none of these people work at SUR anymore, which is what the show was originally anchored in, right? They're all servers at Lisa Vanderpump's restaurant SUR in West Hollywood, and so the show was designed around the inner workings of the restaurant. And then eventually, as the show went on, they started taking other opportunities, and then they were no longer needing to be bussing tables at SUR. Even for a while, I think they were forced to still work at the restaurant, at least when they were filming the show, which eventually the audience became savvy to, and they're like, we don't believe that they're still bartenders. Like, even though they're forced to still be picking up their shifts at SUR, at this point, they don't need to be taking these shifts that, like, why would they? Why should they? Right? Especially when you had someone like Kristen Doty who had gotten fired from SUR, or Stassi Schroeder who moved to New York and then she came back and she wasn't going to come back and bus tables at SUR. So I feel like there was no need for us to continue to have them work in the restaurant when it was very clear that they weren't working in the restaurant. But I'm concerned that this reboot is not going to do well. I think it's going to be a repeat of, the Real Housewives of New York Roni reboot. Because I just don't think people are that interested. The struggle with rebooting a show like this, especially when it's so close to the original show, like reboots usually come years later, right? When there's a new generation to bring into the reboot that can anchor it, right? When they've tried to reboot old shows, Melrose Place, 90210, even recently, like Roseanne, which has now become The Connors. Like, I think those shows, when there's a new audience that's interested in a next generation, that's when a reboot can be successful. In this case, I think it's too close, right? We're going immediately from season 11 and jumping to season 12 with an entirely new cast, and it's just too quick of a shakeup. And, the reason we loved the show so much is because we fell in love with this group of friends. It was lightning in a bottle. It was nothing that had ever really been done before. And it was a new, fresh concept, right? That's why what happens at the Abbey and Very Cavallari and Vanderpump Dogs and Lohan's Beach Club, all of those shows didn't take off. They had the same premise as Vanderpump Rules with, Lindsay Lohan being the boss, Kristen Cavallari being the boss, but it didn't work because we had already seen it done with Vanderpump Rules, and it was done so organically, and the cast would just give us their everything because they were scrappy and they needed the money and they just didn't care. They had nothing to lose at that point, that there was no recreating that magic. The show was what it was, and it was good for what it was. And I think that's why the audience kind of fell off. Like, we stayed loyal to the show because we were loyal to all of the players that we, watched grow up with us, but the show cannot, like, that magic cannot be recreated, and I don't think a new era of Vanderpump Rules will be as successful as its predecessors because there's just no, we've already seen it done. And like Roni, you're comparing the new cast to the old cast, and when you compare the two, they're just completely different. It's a completely different show. I wish they would have revamped it in some way that wasn't Vanderpump Rules. Because look, remember when they tried to do it, what was it, season 8, season 9? The last season, Stassi, Jackson, Kristen were on. Remember, they brought in Max and Brett and Danica and Charlie and Dana, and they were not a great cast, and we didn't really get a whole lot of them, and the whole show just felt like disconjointed. And so I don't think that I don't have high hopes for the reboot. I don't really want to watch the reboot. I'm not really interested. It just feels too close to the OG cast sailing off into the sunset. But they've all been giving releasing their statements and saying goodbye to the show. Sheena kind of alluded to there being a new chapter coming, for her at least, and she used the song "The Rest Is Still Unwritten" by Natasha Bedingfield, which to me kind of felt like a nod to The Hills, because that was the theme song of The Hills. And obviously when Lauren left The Hills, Lauren Conrad, when she left, they replaced her with Kristen Cavallari, and that was kind of like the reboot of The Hills by making Kristen Cavallari the anchor of the show versus Lauren. So it felt like that Sheena was kind of paying homage to that and to them. And obviously it's now been reported, and we've known this for a while, that Sheena's going to be on The Valley, but it appears Sheena's probably going to become one of the main cast members of The Valley. We know that she films a lot, but I think they're actually going to be making her, the first transition cast member from Vanderpump Rules to The the Valley. Obviously, they had Jax and Kristen, and Brittany, but Jax, Kristen, and Brittany were fired from Vanderpump Rules years ago. That this was kind of like their comeback, but now Sheena is the first person to make the transition from current cast member on Vanderpump Rules to current cast member and full-time cast member on the Valley. That's my prediction. It was reported in Deadline that Sheena Shea, Brock Davies, Tom Schwartz, and Lala Kent will be appearing on the new season of the Valley. But I think that those will be cameos. Like Lala obviously made cameos in the first season. Jax moves in next to Schwartz. You know, he literally gets an apartment in Schwartz's building. So I think we'll see their friendship a bit more in the new season. But we'll see. The Valley will be returning in 2025. And we will have a Vanderpump Rules reboot that'll likely be coming soon. They haven't begun filming. They filmed a pilot over the last couple of months that was ultimately what got the network to greenlight the show and cancel the original Vanderpump Rules. But we'll see. I would imagine they probably start filming this spring, maybe even summer, and we get it maybe January 2026. And they just take it back to that old schedule that Vanderpump Rules used to be on. Okay, let's move into some music mayhem, shall we? That's what's hot in the headlines, but now let's get into some music news. I'm a singer. I'm working late because I'm a singer. Obviously, Andy is our music expert, but I did see this go around, and that is that Daniel Craig, Mr. James Bond, is applauding Chaperone. Applauding Chaperone's guts to speak about the toxic fans that she complains about. He says that celebrity kills you. So this was reported in Billboard. And according to Billboard, Daniel Craig is giving praise to Chaperone for the way that she's handled fans who don't respect her boundaries. In a new interview, Craig said that he's been watching Chaperone with some keen interest, especially when it comes to the way that she addresses toxicity online. I really admired the guts to say those things. Celebrity kills you. Really, it's terrible thing that can happen. And I think you've got to really fight against all of the things that it throws in your face because it's so easy to be tempted. Obviously, I've been very critical of Chaperone. I stand by any of my criticism. I think if you decide to become a public figure, there are risks that come with that. There are casualties that come with that. It's like if you want to be an NFL football player, you know that there's risk that goes every time you get onto the football field, right? If you want to be a professional athlete, your body is going to take a beating. If you want to become a model, you're likely going to age out at a certain point, right? Like there are just, hazards that come with the industry. And so I think in this case, I get what he's saying about yes, you should have boundaries, but your boundaries need to be for yourself. Your boundaries are not for other people, right? Your boundaries are for you to respect, your own needs, not for other people to bend down, especially when you make a decision to become a public figure. So I see where he's coming from, but I don't fully agree with him, and I feel like my critique of Chaperone and how critical she's been of her fans, kind of stand by that, right? And I feel like she's kind of even losing some of her fans, at least from what I see in the criticism of her online. I personally don't care to listen to any of her music. If her songs come on, I skip right through them just because to me, I just don't find her very likable, and not even likable, right? Because there are plenty of celebrities that are unlikable, but still put out good art. But I think with Chaperone, for me, it's like she doesn't respect her fans, in my opinion. From what I see, she doesn't respect them. She doesn't seem to really care for them. She continues to overexpose herself by doing these big music festivals and going to the MTV Awards and doing all of that sort of stuff, where it's like you look at somebody like Adele that has very strict boundaries. I've said this in the past. Adele has very strict boundaries, doesn't try to overexpose herself, doesn't try to put herself out there too much, is still making art, still releasing albums, and she just, is wrapping up her Vegas residency. She's still a working artist that doesn't overexpose herself in the way that I think Chaperone is doing right now. Lollapalooza and MTV Awards, those are not places you put yourself if you want less exposure, right? She worked for this. She wanted to become a famous musician. She's become that famous musician. And unfortunately, it's not always glamorous, and you don't always get to dictate, what the audience wants to take from you if that's what you put out there. You don't get to be a star as big as Taylor Swift without also people wanting access to every detail of your life. unfortunately. The more you put yourself out there, the more people are curious and want to know about you and want to have access to you. And you essentially are selling your soul, right? You're becoming less of a person and more of a commercialized product that people then want to purchase and have access to in that way. I know that that's not the fun, take on celebrity culture, but it is what it is. You can't sit back and complain that you sprained your ankle when you agreed to go on the football fields and play in the NFL. It is what it is. Don't go in that industry if you're not comfortable with that. So again, good for him for cheering her on. Yes, I guess she does have guts to speak about toxic fans and to clap back at them. But, celebrity life is not for everyone. And it's challenging. I mean, you look at somebody like Kim Kardashian who's like, I love being famous. I've always wanted to be famous. I was built for this life, as tough as it is. So, yeah. That's what I got. That's the best music news I've got for you. But into some more general news, speaking of the Kardashians, we have Kristin Cavallari, who's been very critical of the Kardashians, and she's called them out on her podcast a lot recently. And she's now calling out Scott Disick. So she is claiming that that the Kardashians are being manipulative, because obviously Kristin Cavallari has had a lot of not so positive things to say about the Kardashians and about their influence in Hollywood and about their role in Hollywood. And, she's been talking out a lot and saying Kanye's a clone. And, she's gone down some of her conspiracy theory tangents on her podcast. But she says that she thinks the Kardashians are getting a bit concerned about all the things that Kristin is saying, because now Scott Disick randomly has slid back into her DMs. And she's like, wait, I knew you 17 years ago. Like, we're not friends. Because I guess Kristin was around in the same time with like Brody Jenner. And obviously, was Scott Disick? No, that was Spencer Pratt. I'm mistaking Scott Disick for Spencer Pratt. But I guess like Scott Disick was also kind of in that world. Like they were all young and, wealthy and, just young, dumb, rich kids, right? And so I guess Scott Disick and Kristin Cavallari have a history from way back in the day. And she's like, I haven't heard from him. I haven't spoken to him. I haven't had anything from him in, nearly 2 decades. Now, all of a sudden, now that I'm being so critical of the Kardashians on my podcast, now he suddenly wants to reach out to me and talk about, parent life and like, let's bond over being parents. And I'm just trying my best to be a good dad, and let's meet up and let's hang out. And she's just like, why would I meet up with you? Why would I talk? Like, I have no interest in you. She's like, it's so strange that he thinks that after all this time, like, I just randomly believe that he wants to hang out with me. So she seems to think that this is being spearheaded by Kris Jenner, and that Kris Jenner doesn't like all the things that Kristin Cavallari is saying about the Kardashians on her podcast. And so they're trying to reel it back in and trying to get Kristin on their side. I don't know if I believe that. I feel like it's a little overthought. Like, we put a little too much, thought into this theory. I do think it's weird. I do think it's strange that Scott Disick is reaching out to her straight out of the blue. So I kind of get where she feels a little strange about it, but also at the same time, maybe it's manipulative, maybe it's not. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that he's genuinely trying to help preserve the Kardashian name by getting, like, is anybody really giving Kristin Cavallari's podcast and her comments about the Kardashians that much weight? But not only that, I feel like the Kardashians are losing control of the narrative. They're losing control of their image. They're kind of becoming a bit irrelevant because we're not talking about them as much as we used to. We weren't like as obsessed with them as we used to be. But I feel like it's kind of like that with celebrity culture in general. I just feel like people are less and less jazzed by celebrities. Like that fascination isn't there as much. I think celebrities are a little too out of touch and curated that for, where we're at culturally, I just don't think people are as in touch with, idolizing them the way they once did, and the Kardashians included. And so we'll see what happens with the Kardashians. But I mean, I would assume they would do anything and everything to try and stay as relevant as they can. But I mean, they've dominated the media for the past 2 decades. Like 20 years of, what are we in 2024? When did the Kardashians start? 2006, I believe. Let's see. Keeping Up with the Kardashians season 1 was in 2007. Okay, so from 2007, that's what, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, what, 17 years. Okay. So they've dominated. Well, I mean, even prior to that, we had the Ray J sex tape and all of that stuff that I think also kind of, put them at the forefront of uh, the media coverage that we got from them. But I mean, the show is really what put them on the map, let's be honest. But we'll see. Drop a comment below and let us know if you think that Scott Disick and the Kardashians are trying to get Kristen Cavallari back on their side so that she can stop talking smack about them. The internet is also freaking out over Lindsay Lohan's new face. So if you've seen the photos, the before and after photos, Lindsay Lohan has been, in the media. She's been talking about Freaky Friday. She's been promoting her new Netflix movie, and she looks incredible. She looks brand new. She was just on Watch What Happens Live, and like her face just looks so fresh. And she's looked a little beat and haggard over the last several years, especially before she kind of dipped out of Hollywood and went to Dubai and, left the acting scene. I feel like I don't know. She's had some work done. Obviously, people are speculating on, is it lasers? Is it a facelift? Is it, I even saw these theories online where people are like, oh yeah, it's this crazy procedure that people have done. It gets done in New York where they essentially go under the skin and it's kind of like a facelift, but it's a $200,000 procedure where they essentially lift their micro lifts. It's not one big lift. It's a lot of little micro lifts that they do in all of the areas that need some tailoring to your face. So people think it's this micro lift facial that's like completely underground that stars are having done. Some people are speculating that she's had multiple things done. Like there's this new CO2 facial. And so like very, very similar to Tamra Judge, who had her upper facelift and she I think also had that like CO2 laser facial. And she looks incredible now as well. But so that seems to be the common theme is people are going in for procedures and they're getting multiple things done to their face at once. That way, as it all heals, it kind of all heals together. I think that's a little dangerous because you don't know, like if you do one procedure, you don't know what that's going to look like afterwards. Even when you go in for like Botox or filler, they always say, wait about 2 weeks before you come in for a touch-up because we want to see how it settles first. So I think to be doing all these little nips and tucks all over your face all at once can be a little dangerous, just from my own perspective. But I looked at Dr. Jen Armstrong, who I go to for my face. I haven't gone to her in a while. Like I've said, I've been very honest. I haven't gotten Botox in over a year. I haven't gotten filler in over a year. Last November is when I got my Botox touched up, and last summer is when I got my filler done. So my face is, and I've even let my eyebrows grow out. I ditched the blonde hair. So everything in my face is completely... it's all natural at this point. Like my face moves. I'm going back in to see Dr. Jen Armstrong. She's out in Newport Beach. I'm going to go back in to get a little bit of under eye filler, just a little bit. I like that she's really big on like droplets just to kind of smooth my face out, and then get back on, a Botox regimen just to kind of lift my face back up because I feel like my face is melting, especially in the in-studio shots that I see of me sometimes. I'm like, oof. I look like my face is melting. And so if you just do little bits, right? Just a little bit to maintain it. But so she seems to think, Dr. Jen Armstrong, she does these celebrity review videos of before and afters, and she seems to think that Lindsay Lohan did not have a whole bunch of work done, but it's actually just little bits of work, right? She got some new, better filler, primarily filler under the eyes, but it's the lateral eye. Or actually, so she said she's definitely had lateral eye filler. So most people, when they get filler, they get it here in the cheeks, or they even try to get it in the mid-face to kind of like fill out the cheeks. But Dr. Jen is always like, don't do that. Do a little bit under the eyes, and then mostly the lateral eye is what's going to give you the biggest difference, because once you fill it up a little bit, it also kind of just lifts the bottom of your face as well. If you do it delicately and you do it very like precision based, it can have big, profound results. And you see the before and after pictures, and it does look like Lindsay went from getting the filler put in the mid-face, which is really popular, but also gives you like that shelf look. And instead of doing mid-face, doing the lateral eye does make a much better, significant difference. I know it made a difference for me. when Dr. Jen started doing a little bit of under eye filler. Like, I look at older photos of me from like 4 years ago, and wow, I have really sunken in eyes. And that's just genetic, that we have like bags and sunken in eyes, whereas I don't have that issue as much anymore. So she thinks Lindsay did that. She also thinks that Lindsay had a nose job, and she says that Lindsay did not have a brow lift, because a lot of people, they'll do the brow lift and it gives them like that cat eye. I don't know if I agree that I don't think Lindsay's had a brow lift, only because I feel like her eyes are a little more open. Now, that can be done with Botox sometimes, where you put a little Botox under the brow and it kind of lifts the brow a bit. And you put a little Botox around the eyes, and that also kind of just opens the eyes and lifts the brows. That's what I like. I always have just like a little done around the eyes and under the brow, just because, I have smaller eyes, that it kind of just opens everything up again. But yeah, she thinks that it's just, a fixed filler and Botox, lots of Botox. But she also thinks that Lindsay may have had a minor nose job. She says because her nose doesn't flare out at the bottom of her nose like it used to, and it seems a little flatter at the bottom as well. And then a big thing that Dr. Jen does is lower face Botox. People always do like forehead and eyes, but you don't realize how significant of an impact you can have on your face by doing lower face Botox. Or I love nose Botox. When they do the bunny lines on your nose, I feel like it just contours and shapes your nose so well that it makes a big difference. I love nose Botox. I've noticed a big difference with it. And then she also said the one thing people are not really paying attention to much is Lindsay's hair. She's like, she said it's a thicker brow, that she doesn't think she's had anything done to her brows, but she's thickened the brow, which brows have a significant impact on your face as well. People don't realize that, whether they're bad brows or good brows or fuller brows, whatever it is, the brows change your face. A thicker, fuller brow makes you look so much younger and more youthful. So she thinks that. And then with the change in hair color, like, it does kind of make a lot of an impact, right? The hairstyle seems to part a little more, so Lindsay's forehead doesn't look as big. She's wearing her hair, a little more down to the sides. And then there's obviously the thicker brow and the color. A change in hair color does make a significant difference as well. Sorry, I know I went on my plastic surgery tangent, but yeah. Okay, moving on, we have Wendy Williams. Her guardian is saying that she has become permanently disabled and legally incapacitated as she receives an official dementia diagnosis. This is really sad news coming off of the end of the Wendy Williams show, right? That was like, and then we just recently had her docuseries. I feel like I loved Wendy. I think I wasn't an avid watcher of the Wendy Williams show, but I did really enjoy and appreciate her and what she brought to the talk show genre. I think she did really well. I think, she definitely broke down some barriers, and it wasn't your standard talk show, right? It wasn't Ellen. It wasn't Oprah. It wasn't Tamron Hall. It's not Jennifer Hudson. It's not Sherry Shepherd. Like, they all have their own unique style, but it's all very similar to the traditional daytime talk show format. Whereas Wendy, yes, did kind of stick to the general format, but she broke it down in the way that she approached it. Her set design was different. She had her hot topics that were really popular. She gave hot opinions. She didn't try to play to the audience as much as she tried to like let the audience connect with her, right? She made the audience feel like you guys were all friends with her. So I think it's sad. She, was a once famed talk show host. I hope that people remember that legacy and upholds it for her. But we'll see what happens. There was definitely like a legal battle that we saw play out on her most recent documentary, or her docuseries. It's just sad, to kind of see somebody deteriorate in this way. And people are wondering, is it age? Was it drugs? Like, I personally think it's a combination of both. When you're abusing your body for so long, it takes a toll. And then the older you get, the easier it is to start to, lose it a bit. Unfortunately, I think that's the place that she's in now. We also have Armie Hammer, who is talking about life after cannibalism, or at least his cannibalism scandal. So according to People, Armie Hammer is trying to be at peace about his 2017 sexual assault scandal, the cannibalism scandal. It was announced in 2023 that there was no sufficient evidence to support any of the claims, so there were no charges that were ever brought against Armie Hammer, We know that there were, the women that released the DMs, and then there was like that documentary series. But I feel like a lot of the things that I saw in that docuseries ended up getting debunked. And again, there were no charges that were ever brought. There was no evidence that proved anything. So I don't know. To me, it just kind of felt like they were kinky DMs that I just think he was kinky. And then, we were straight off of Me Too and straight after Time's Up that people, were looking for the next big star to cancel. And, I know his family has, a complicated history, but again, I don't know how much I believe of these documentaries. Because, I know I got a lot of crap for defending Erica Jane and her legal scandal, but like anybody that watched The Housewife and the Hustler Part 1 and Part 2 would have believed that Erica was just as much of a villain as Tom was. But then when you go through the legal documents, you talk to legal analysts, you look at, I talked to the victims, I talked to, so many different people over that 3-year time span diving into that entire scandal, people on the record, off the record, on my podcast. And I will say that the story that was presented on Hulu in The Housewife and the Hustler was not an accurate portrayal of the actual scandal or what was going on. The scandal didn't even really the documentary didn't even really focus as much on the victims as it did on the sensationalism of being attached to Real Houses of Beverly Hills and Erica Jane. Housewife and the Hustler Part 2 was solely focused on Erica, and yet the biggest culprit of this entire scandal outside of Tom Girardi was the Girardi key CFO, Christopher Camone. I can name on one hand the number of times Christopher Camone came up in that 2-part documentary. And it's because these documentaries now are not meant to teach us much as they're meant to to be entertaining and tell us a good story, right? And to get as many eyeballs on it as possible. If it were just the Girardi scandal and the focus was on Tom Girardi, the other attorneys at the firm, and the CFO, not many people would have cared, right? But the fact that they attached it to Erica so much, and then they exaggerated certain things and, focused on so much of the housewife story. And like, it just, to me, it was kind of, I don't know. It's sensationalized, and it's unfortunate because you put the label of documentary on it, and then suddenly it's like, it's supposed to have more credibility. But like, I was even critical of the LA Times and some of their coverage of the Girardi scandal because they chose to focus so much on Erica. And again, it was because the Erica headlines drove more clicks to their articles, right? And you see the LA Times struggling, that then, you get why they leaned into that. But it's like the real story. I saw the real story. I saw the true Hollywood story, and it wasn't through what I was hearing from Erica. It was what I was hearing from the lawyers that were attached to these cases. It was from what I was hearing with the victims or the former clients that were attached to these cases. It was what I was hearing from real real legal analysts and legal commentators and attorneys that I was bringing on my show that were familiar with Tom Girardi. It was their portrayal, the people on the ground. It was a very different story than what was being reported in the media. So that's why I have skepticism when it comes to cases like Armie Hammer, where to me, it really just looks like he was, a hot white dude that came for money, had pretty privilege, was an idiot that sent some really kinky DMs and maybe had some kinky rough sex. And now, now he has to rebuild himself. But so according to these sources in People, he's looking to rebuild and, possibly have a big comeback. So we've seen that he is struggling a bit. We saw that he sold his truck because he said gas became too expensive. And now apparently he lives in a very small LA apartment. I would like to know what is considered a very small LA apartment. Is it smaller than my apartment? Is it a 1-bedroom? Is it a studio? I have a 2-bedroom. I want to know, what is the square footage? How much is he paying in rent? What part of town is he in? But in addition to his very small LA apartment, he has zero family money to fall on. So I'm not sure how he's even affording anything. We know his mom bought him a vasectomy for his birthday. But I don't know. But apparently he wants to rebuild and get his career back. And now he's just learning that he has to actually work for it, But he has this new podcast. The article says that he has a few projects in the works. Are we ready for an Armie Hammer comeback? Again, I think he's just like a hot white dude, came from money, definitely benefited off of pretty privilege, tall, good body, cute face, nice jawline. And yeah, I mean, listen, if I'm being honest, like, I think I would let him nibble on a rib, like, why not? Like, let him, he's hot, and I am a sucker for a problematic, problematic guy. Red flags, let's go. So yeah, I don't know if the world is ready for an Armie Hammer comeback, but I think for me, I'm definitely down to, I'm down to let him nibble on a couple of my limbs. But now he has to actually work to make a comeback. He's got to rehab his image, and we'll see. You better work, bitch. You better work. Okay, let's finish off with our couples corner. We have Meghan and Harry. People are speculating that there may be some trouble in paradise. They've been going to a lot of solo events lately without each other. Meghan Markle just hosted a Thanksgiving dinner without Harry. So people are starting to wonder, like, what is going on? Why are they no longer this Meghan and Harry brand? Why are they doing all of these events independently without each other? Is there something going on in their relationship? According to sources, their professional relationship may be in trouble. I don't really know what that means or how the professional relationship relates to the personal relationship, but I mean, could you imagine if he literally gave up his royal life and his whole family moved to the United States to be with Meghan Markle, and then it doesn't work out and he literally lost everything? I don't know. I think there has to be something going on. If they were so, this public facing couple, it locked arm in arm together. They built this Meghan and Harry brand together, and now they're spending a lot of time publicly without each other. I think that has to say something. Maybe it's not the end of their relationship, but there's something there. We'll see. Leonardo DiCaprio is not engaged, despite all of the internet speculation and the internet fodder. He is not engaged to his model girlfriend. Her name is Victoria Soretti. And even though the internet thought that they were engaged, they're not. That's just more low-budget rumors. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, that's the latest update in the couples corner. I don't have a new J-Lo update for you. I don't have a new Diddy update for you. Oh, well, there was a Diddy update. It's kind of old, but it was just that, in our legal update, the Diddy update is just that he was denied. He was denied something. Let's see, what is going on in Diddy land? There was, he was denied being released again. Yeah, he's still trying to get out of jail. And they're like, nope, you're going to stay there. You're not getting out anytime soon. Locked up, they won't let me out. And then the last thing in our legal update is the Menendez brothers. So we were expecting some big news because they had their hearing that was supposed to take place this week or take place over the last couple of days, but it did not because the hearing has been pushed back. So unfortunately, we don't have a Menendez brother update. We won't know until next year because things will be on hold, on pause for the holidays. So they will not be home for the holidays, which, by the way, I know that was one of Andy's predictions, is that they will be home in time for the holidays. And booyah, bitch. No, they won't. I was right yet again. I said they would not be home in time for the holidays, that this would be, or did he say they will not be released anytime soon, that this is going to be a long, someone predicted that they'll be out in time by the holidays, which I said will absolutely not happen. Maybe Chef Stu said it and it wasn't Andy. I think Andy said it'll be a long time before we see either of them out. So sorry, Andy, but that's what happens when you're not here to fact check me. All right. Thank you guys for tuning into the Pop Report. Love ya. Appreciate ya. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Happy Thanksgiving. All right. Bye, guys.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Pop Report.
And you should probably hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode.
If you didn't at this point, I don't know what the hell you're doing. But if you want to keep
wasting time.
You know that's true. If you want to keep up with more, obviously follow us along. Find more on our playlists and listen wherever. Leave a review. Do the damn thing.
All the things. All the engagement. We love you, so show us some love.
We don't.